Referendum, the Queen has called for quiet thinking and contemplation. She was speaking as she formally opened the fifth session of the Scottish Parliament. The monarch acknowledged the difficulty of staying calm and collected in an increasingly challenging world, but she stressed the need for us all to make room for calm, quiet contemplation. Is the Queen right? With the current political, economy, social climate, is this even possible to achieve in today's world? Do you think she's right? Do we need to make time for calm, quiet contemplation? And how hard is it?
On FM, online, on your mobile, and on digital radio. Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC. LBC with Beverley Turner. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC.
This is Bev with you until 8 o'clock. Now, the Queen was formally opening the fifth session of the Scottish Parliament today, and she acknowledged the difficulty of the world at the moment, our current political climate, and how messed up it is, let's just say. And she said that we have to stay calm and collected in an increasingly challenging world. She stressed the need for political leaders to make room for calm, quiet contemplation. But how easy is that in the real life? Probably quite easy for her to say that, isn't it? She doesn't have to unstack her own dishwasher. Would you find it easy to find time in your day for some quiet thinking and contemplation? And why would you? Why would you? Do you think it's important? Do we need to create a life in which we turn off our screens, we chill, we think, we reflect, give ourselves a bit of space in our heads? We probably could. We probably should. I agree with the Queen on this. I think she's got a point. We should be making room for quiet thinking and contemplation. But it's almost impossible, isn't it, in 2016 to find the time in your day to do that? Do you have space in your head to make that happen, and space in your life? I don't. 0345 6060 973 is the number to call. Tell me how you can do this. Are you one of these people who manages to make time to have some meditation in your day? How important is it for you to do that? And what difference does it make to your life? Why should we be making time for quiet thinking and contemplation? 0345 6060 973 is the number to ring. And would you like your politicians to make time at the moment to let the dust settle, to think about how we're going to move forward, and to make decisions based on their head rather than their heart, rather than knee-jerk, rather than gut reactions, which I think we've seen rather a lot of in the last 9 days. 0345 6060 973. What do you think the Queen meant by us needing time for quiet thinking and contemplation? She said she knows it's difficult to stay calm and collected in an increasingly challenging world. What do you think she was getting at? 0345 6060 973 is the number. Dr Ramya Mohan is joining us now. Hello, Dr Ramya.
Hello, how are you today?
I'm not too bad. Now, you're the senior consultant psychiatrist and medical educator with the National Health Service, with the NHS. And what do you think the Queen was trying to say with this statement this morning?
Well, with the way things are at the moment, the whole climate is rather unquantified, rather unknown, a lot of uncertainty around. And I suppose, irrespective of what's happening in one's external environment, it's about trying to see how we can manage things on an individual level, how we can manage our anxieties and stresses on an individual level, because that ultimately reflects how we are able to manage as a society as well, because the society is made up of its people.
Looking at the political activity of the last week then, Dr Ramya, would you say that some of our politicians might have benefited from a few moments of quiet reflection before making decisions?
It's something that would be beneficial to anyone. It's really important to prioritize pushing the pause button, I think, before we are able to, before responding rather than reacting. Yes, it would be helpful to everyone, I think, politician or not.
Now, email, and we live in obviously a very technological world now, but email particularly plays into the hands of people who might say things in anger and can't then take them back, doesn't it?
Definitely, yes. Emails at least give us a chance to, perhaps think before we press the send button. So in a way, we could use technology to our advantage, I think, rather than resort to phone calls or direct confrontation. Sometimes it's good to give it a bit of thought, and sometimes putting it on paper helps look at things from a different perspective as well. So it can work both ways. Ultimately boils down to how one individually manages oneself and the anxieties, I suppose.
Do you think, because a lot of schools are now teaching mindfulness and putting meditation on the curriculum, what are their reasons for doing that?
Well, there is so much of research that has been done on stress through the ages, and how stress can actually affect emotional performance, emotional well-being, exam performance, and just general, and how individuals can actually respond and manage themselves in an ever-changing and more complex world. So I suppose the difficulty is when a little bit of stress is always good, isn't it? Because it actually fuels motivation, it fuels performance and productivity. It's been, there's some research to show it actually improves memory. So there is a lot of positives with a little bit of stress now and then. I suppose the difficulty is when it becomes unregulated, or when it escalates very quickly to a point where the rational reasoning it becomes difficult, or when the stress stays within oneself for a significant period of time, becomes chronic, and that can have a very bad impact on on one's emotional well-being, or on their physical health as well.
Okay, and so what do you think the Queen? What do you think we should take from it? What she said today? What do you think our politicians should take from it in the light of our current climate? What do we need to consider?
I think it's very important to actually, as I said, press the pause button, take a moment to think and reflect, being very aware of ourselves, really, before we actually make judgments or react to anything. It's also about looking at the positives in any situation. I think we need to be able to do that, especially in a rather fluid climate where there's a lot of to and froing at the moment. Mind training is key, I think, to any form of anxiety or stress management. It is hard work, but it will work if it's cultivated properly. Mindfulness is just one aspect of it. Being aware, acknowledging the positive and negative aspects of any situation that is being experienced at that moment, without getting drawn into it or pulled into it, but rather looking at it from a passive perspective without judgment. That takes a lot of doing, a lot of training. But alongside that, it's also really important, I think, in the society we are in at the moment, with all, and you talked about mindfulness at schools. It's really important to look at how we can garner these positive things, and it's not just mindfulness. It's about using various really strong aspects that could actually support children, young people, and adults. Really, things like the creative arts, which is something I'm very, very interested in, and I've done a bit of research in. Because the creative arts, for example, actually support the right kind of emotional management, in that they're actually playing on the same areas of the brain. So what they're actually doing is consolidating what mindfulness does. And this has been the basis of a technique that I developed as well, because I think it's really important for us to look at this as from a multimodal perspective, multidimensional perspective. We have to look at it individually, how we manage things. We have to look at it within a family, because the whole climate is about a lot of emotional. For some people, there is a lot of emotional attachment. There's a lot of history there, familial, ancestral links, emotional viewpoints, lots of financial worries as well, with the pound dropping and everything else. A lot of fears of the unknown. So from a familial perspective, how it's managed, and from a societal perspective, which is where our politicians and their leadership actually comes in. So all all the more reason, I think, for the leadership of the country to think very carefully about where things are steered, really. And given that it's a time of high emotional turmoil, about being very mindful of that and actually making sure that people feel supported and contained at a very insecure time.
Okay, thank you very much. That was Dr Ramya Mohan, their senior consultant psychiatrist and medical educator with the NHS. So she was saying it is important that we manage anxieties and stresses on an individual level because that will have an effect on a global level. Do you agree? 0345 6060973. And it's so unusual for the Queen to make any sort of statement. She doesn't obviously make any kind of political statements, does she? She doesn't ever nail her colours to any particular mast. But I felt like this is sort of the closest that she comes to doing that. She was, as we say, she was opening the fifth session of the Scottish Parliament. She asked for quiet thinking and contemplation. She recognised the difficulty of staying calm and collected in an increasingly challenging world, but she stressed the need for political leaders to make room for calm and quiet contemplation. What do you think she was getting at? And does she have a point? And is it quite difficult to do that in real life? 0345 6060973 is the number to call. You're listening to Bev Turner on LBC. I'm here until 8 o'clock. Now, the Queen has been in Scotland today. She's told Nicola Sturgeon and her Parliament that this is a time for hope and optimism. And she urged Scottish Parliament into quiet thinking and contemplation. What do you think she was getting at? She recognised that we live in a fast-moving world. She referred to increasingly complex and demanding times. And this is kind of as close as she gets, isn't it, the Queen, to making a sort of political statement. She's being a little grandmotherly, I would say, and sort of is very keep calm and carry on. What do you think she's getting at? Why was she saying that? Why did she choose today to make that particular statement? Do you think she was talking to Nicola Sturgeon directly in this? Does she not want to see the dismantling of her country? Or was she just, as Dr Ramya Mohan was telling us then, that actually we need to manage our stress and anxiety on an individual level because that affects the global level? Dr Ramya talked about pressing the pause button. She talks about mindfulness and meditation. In fact, they have those in lots of schools today.
0345 6060973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC.